have a suggested topic from Digby Davis LLC, which is a $5 patron. At the $5 level, you get to suggest an article like this. You also get access to the Patron-only posts on the Patreon page. So thank you so much, Digby Davis, who has been sponsoring the show since the first month, February, that we started doing this. And the thing that's been so cool about doing this channel is all of you that are jumping in to support this, not only do you support it, you guys seem pretty smart and pretty I'm not getting a lot of, fucking Graham, like I'm not getting a lot of those emails and posts. You guys seem pretty sharp. So I think it's awesome, and you're helping me see more stuff. You're making me more aware of certain subjects and topics and things that are happening in your local area. So Digby Davis LLC, thank you so much. So their question is, what media outlets do you trust, if any, and what sort of fact-checking process do you go through to separate fact from bullshit? That's a great question. So the places I get a lot of sources from, many of you have seen, I go to truthdig.com, I go to theintercept.com, and I just found this one, realnews.com. But then I read like the LA Times, I read USA Today, and I go through on the internet to find certain stories. Part of what I'm doing is I'm getting more educated into the tactics of the corporate state and what they try to do. So even if I read something like in the LA Times or the Washington Post or something like that, I'm always like asking, what's the angle? What are they trying to push here? Because in fairness, like I've read some interviews, some excerpts from people that like worked at the New York Times, and they're like, man, I felt like I was selling out to the corporate state. But they said I did do some, 15 to 20% of the stuff that comes out of the New York Times or an outlet like that is actually, there's decent journalism. So I try to see, first of all, what angle, what story are they trying to push? What agenda? Is this a pro-corporate thing? Is this a pro-war machine? Is this trying to keep me scared and misinformed? Or are they actually trying to get at something? And sometimes they get it, I didn't know this. Like they're getting at a fact and they're giving me information and statistics that I didn't know. So I try to read through the lines. I'm a little more trusting of The Intercept and Truthdig because they seem to be reporting on stuff that nobody else is. And I'm not saying they're perfect or infallible, but I've seen a lot of fairly accurate stuff. And again, when the corporate media isn't covering it, or they're only covering one side of it, they're not bringing up the other stuff. That's kind of how my fact-checking process is. I kind of see like, what's the corporate media doing? How is CNN reporting this? How's MSNBC reporting this? That's the loudest, bullhorn of the corporate state, are those outlets. Because they get millions of people, and then their clips get repurposed online and social media. One thing I'm willing to do is to say, maybe I got this wrong. Maybe I screwed up. Because I'm not coming into this with the ego of, I'm right. I'm right, and listen to me. I'm always right, and anyone who disagrees is wrong. I don't want to come from that angle. I want to come up with what is the truth here. And here's my opinion on the truth. So, like, I'll give you a great example. In, I think, January or February, I read an article about Justin Trudeau. I didn't know much about the guy. I was like, oh, he's this guy. He does yoga. He's this real progressive, awesome liberal dude. And I was like, awesome. Don't know much about him. Sounds good. This is the kind of leadership we need. Trump's evil. And a bunch of you guys that watch this that live in Canada are like, Graham, hold on. He's backing pipelines. He's a big oil guy. And then like a couple months later, hearing plenty of that and covering other stories. And then I found a newer article that was written by a more alternative news source. So the first article was, like CNN.com or something. And the second one was like, Trudeau got paid to fly to Houston to meet with oil people. And, they've got billions of barrels of oil in this, like a part of their land up in Canada. And he's like, well, I'd be an idiot to just not spend that money. And it gets a big round of applause to the oil guys down in Texas. So I was like, oh, this is who he really is. So I'm more than willing to admit I'm wrong and say I blew it. And CNN and MSNBC aren't going to say that. Rachel Maddow's not going to come on TV and go, guys, I know I was doing all this connect the dots Russian things. I really should have been asking why we're bombing Syria for real, and should have been doing a story on the thousands of civilians that we have killed with drone strikes from Trump, Obama, and Bush. And yeah, I'm a liberal Rhodes Scholar, but I let Obama slide too much. I've never seen that. I've never seen, CNN issues apologies and stuff like that for Donna Brazil, but they didn't just change their tune. And nothing was more evident than the reaction by the media after the Syria strike. the airstrike that Trump did last month. That's when I really went, wow, the combination of that and YouTube demonetizing me and Jimmy Dore and Kyle Kalinske and a couple other people talking about the Syrian attacks and Yemen airstrikes. When we started to get demonetized, that's when I was like, wow, this is really weird. This is what the corporate machine is trying to do. Like, I find an article and I tried to read through it when I'm looking for stuff to talk about on the show. It's the source of where it's coming from and what is the agenda behind it. Also, I just go, I try to get it as right as I can, but it's just me. Like, I don't have a whole team of researchers. It's like, really, it's you guys are my research team. You guys send me stuff and say, Graham, talk about this, find this. Have you covered any videos on that? So you guys are my research team, and I try to fact check as best I can. Like, I remember I got an article. Here's another great example. Digby Davis LLC. Someone sent me an article about there was a million Muslim march for making Muslim, against ISIS, and the media didn't cover it at all. And I saw this article. I was like, and I was looking at this source. I'm like, this, and I looked at all the other articles on their website. And I go, this seems a little janky. So I Googled it, and then Snopes said this is not true because it actually wasn't a march to say no to ISIS. It was a yearly religious observance. It wasn't a holiday. This is what they're observing within their religion. Some people there were like, hey, us Muslims need to stand up against terrorism and ISIS, but it wasn't an anti-ISIS march. And the mainstream media did cover it. They said, oh, this is this, like they talk about it's Ramadan or whatever. So that was one of my first examples. I had just then started doing this show. I was only a couple weeks in, and I was like, let me make sure. Because the one thing I don't want to do is just overreact online. Like, there's somebody sends a tweet, I'm like, oh my God, and then I got to retweet it. Holy shit, this is, we all got to jump on board. It's like, whoa, do a little research, dig a little deeper. And I've done that and been wrong, so I'm trying to dig a little deeper. And also realize that it's okay. One thing the mainstream media won't say is maybe. Rachel Maddow or Chris Matthews or Wolf Blitzer or any of those people aren't going to go, I don't know. Here's what I think, but it's hard to say because they could be running a game because they're not going to say, oh, the deep state is trying to get you to think they're bullshit. So I'm going to ask questions and I might not have a clear answer. I'm okay with doing that because that's one thing a bullshitter will never do. A bullshitter will never go, I don't know, man, maybe I'm wrong. A bullshitter usually is like, no, you need to do this. Listen to me, trust me, the other way's wrong. This is what I'm doing. Like a fucking used car salesman. A used car salesman is not going to say, I don't know, maybe you shouldn't buy this car. Like a car salesman is not going to go, 30 grand, can you afford it? Take the bus. Like they're not going to do that. So I'm going to be honest with you to the best of my ability. And as I've said, you might not agree with everything I'm saying, and I might get it wrong, but know that I'm saying this based on my opinion and my research and how I'm trying to fact check as best I can as a guy in his apartment. And I'm not going to bullshit you for some corporate reason. That's my promise to you. So Digby Davis LLC, thank you so much for supporting the show, and everybody else, all the other patrons, whether you're giving $1 or 25 and anywhere in between, I really appreciate it because you're helping this channel grow and make it better and make me cover stuff like this. Awesome questions, guys. Patreon link is below. Like and subscribe and see all the patrons' names. You get your name in the credits. See, it scrolls up there. Those are real people. You could be one of those people. I don't know why I'm doing a weird voice. All right, we're going to wrap this up.